Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd like to pass on first my condolences to family and friends. Last time I saw Jim was in Benghazi when Gaddafi's troops were up and down the road from Al Buaida to Benghazi. And James, as ever, was there. He was, as we've heard, a committed and brave journalist. But that was the last time I saw him in Libya.
He's been kidnapped before this time, and you were contacted, I understand, by the FBI to try and help in the search for him. And what sort of information were you able to give to the FBI? How were you able to help?
I'd spent a bit of prolonged time in Syria myself when I was injured, and obviously I had a good network of connections on the ground in Syria. So really it was a case of just contacting anyone and everyone we could to you know, just to put the word out that James was missing, and to keep the people looking, to make the people on the ground, because they were the only people who could ever make a difference, were people on the ground, and really just use the network of contacts that were in place in Syria. We did all we could.
Paul, can you give us some idea into what would have been going on inside Jim's head? I mean, he'd already been kidnapped before, and then he goes and puts himself in yet another very difficult, conflict-ridden situation, just rife, actually, with danger. What drove him?
I think, like all true journalists, it's not with people like James and other professionals. It is in many ways a vocation. They do want to get the truth out. This, you know, the media is often criticised. He went back because not many people were going back, but he knew there were, you know, the need to keep getting that news out, to keep shining a light into the. That's what these dictators like Bashar al-Assad despise most, is information and somebody shining a light, bearing witness as to what these people do. If people like James didn't go out there, the world would be very much in the dark, which makes it a lot easier for tyrants and butchers to carry on doing it with impunity. It's a vital role, and James going out was just James doing his job. He was a professional, that's what he did. Despite the dangers, he went in and he carried on telling them stories. And he's paid the ultimate price, as of a number of my colleagues, through the Libyan and Syrian wars. And all I can say is they deserve all the respect that we can offer. These people went in and did it knowing the risks. They were professional, and the end result was tragic.
Paul, I spoke to Jim's mum, Diane, last year when she still believed that he might be alive, and she said he was just a young man with a camera wanting to tell the Syrian side of the story. And James himself also spoke to the BBC and said it was the human side of the conflict that he really wanted to convey. Is that often what you feel is missing, that if journalists don't go into these situations, you miss the human element of what is happening to people in conflict zones?
Absolutely correct. When myself and Marie went into Bab el-Amra in Homs, it was, you know, that's the lowest common denominator in war. We see the high-tech imagery of smart bombs going down chimneys. What we don't see is the horrible reality of men, women and children on the ground being ripped to pieces by pieces of metal. And that is, if you want to explain war, if you want to show war, that is the angle that you explain it from, for the people who suffer from it. The dictators, etc., are generally someplace far off, with the people who suffer are on the ground, and that's where journalists go, or should go, to get the heart of war. If you want to see the true cost of war, it's on the ground with the people, and that involves many risks. There are a certain amount of people who are willing to take them risks, and James is one of them, and I think the world should mourn the loss of people like James. He was a good person trying to tell the story of people suffering, and that's how we should remember him.
Paul, thanks so much for joining us from Plymouth with your memories there and your thoughts. And just to tell you, Paul was referring to the time that he was working with Marie Colvin, a very well-known journalist here in the UK. She was killed in the city of Homs in Syria. You can see there Paul was also badly injured in that attack.